It was the video game that gave birth to and defined an entire gaming genre. It was the first true one of its kind that went on to inspire several other fighting franchises, as well as countless spin-offs within the game itself. It is ingrained into both video game and pop culture folklore, the video game that is the granddaddy of them all. I am referring to the one and only Street Fighter 2. To say this game left quite the impact on the gaming industry would be the understatement of the century. I mean, before it came along, there was Street Fighter, which was a one-player game versus the computer. This game set the standard for fighting games by having a roster of 8 unique characters that you could choose from and compete with in one-on-one competition against the computer, or more importantly, against your friends. It was first released on the arcades in 1991 before being imported to a number of home consoles, the two most notable ones being the release on the Sega Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. It was probably in the spring or the summer of 1994 that I first became aware of this game. I just happened to be visiting a family friend who was playing it with his siblings. I got a chance to try it, and I have never looked back since. Initially in that period I was more of an observer and I liked watching people play. And when I got a chance to give it a try, I was like, oh, it's my turn, cool. And then that later became, when do I get to play? Kids are just all over the place. When I got to grips with the game, it was all about the button bashing and seeing what special moves or combos I could pull off. Then I saw Blanka and Guile. Now their moves were quite simple to do, as they were just simple charge moves. So it was always Sonic Boom or Flash Kick for Guile if somebody came towards me. Or in the case of Blanka, the electricity. A tactic which I learned was never going to work all the time, and some much needed skill was required. The more I played, the more I began to segue over to the two main stalwarts of the game in Ken and Ryu. Looking at how their moves were executed in the instruction manual, it looked like a foreign language to me. It took me a while to learn and pull these moves off. And then it became as natural as breathing, and gradually they became my two favourites in the game. Guile and Blanka, well, I kind of moved away. My least favourite character in the game was Zangief. I found his moveset way too hard to pull off. The whole 360 motion was a real pain in the backside to pull off. And then after several failed attempts, I just stayed clear of him. Dhalsim was another character I wasn't overly fond of. I did love his Yoga Fire and his Yoga Flame moves, but he was very slow and awkward. And then there was Chun-Li. She's a favourite of mine. She was quick, she was agile, her kicks did a lot of damage, and it was the first time hearing those famous 3 words. And then there were her rapid fire kicks. She was fun to use, and for years I thought her celebration was saying, as for E Honda, well, he was like Guile. Pull off the simple charge moves at first. I loved his 100 hand slap. But again, he was a bit slow and not one of my top guys, so didn't use him as often. The main 4 bosses were a new phenomenon, each unique in their own look and their style. So I was quite trepid at first when it came to fighting them. I was so thrilled that these guys could be played in the next versions of the game in both Champion and Turbo Edition. And Sagat was usually my main go-to guy. He had a moveset which was very similar to Ryu, who at this point had become my number 1 character. The lasting impact Street Fighter had on me was so profound that I continued to play well into my adulthood through later iterations of the game. Whether it was the Alpha series, Street Fighter 3 series, the Marvel crossovers, the basics I had learned from this game would stay with me forever. Even when Street Fighter took a near decade-long hiatus, I would still continue to play the series, whether it was Street Fighter 2 or the ones that came after it. But I was praying for a new Street Fighter game, and in 2008, my prayers were answered, in the form of Street Fighter 4. But that's another game for another time. There were a number of things that were a staple of my childhood and my teen years, and Street Fighter 2 was one of them. Nowadays, when it comes to Street Fighter, it's usually Street Fighter 4 that I play, as it's my favourite game in the entire Street Fighter franchise. But I never forget the game that first brought me to the dance, and I am the proud owner of the Street Fighter 30th anniversary video game. And Street Fighter 2 is one of the games I usually go back to. Well, to be more specific, it's Street Fighter 2 Turbo Edition, as it was faster and the bosses were immediately available to use. The memorable parts of the game was the voiceovers in the game.
Round 1, fight! Hadouken! Hadouken! Hadouken!
The bonus stage with the car, I really loved that stage. And then you had the end stories for the different characters. And the character stage music as well was very memorable, especially Guile. Apparently that song goes with everything. If it was not for the resounding success of Street Fighter 2, there would not be a fighting game beat-em-up genre as we know it today. I mean, Street Fighter's success is such that you've had Capcom team up with other competitors to create crossover games, as well as teaming up with other big established brands to create other long-running fighting game series. As I said at the beginning, this game is the granddaddy of all fighting games, and Street Fighter 2 will go down in history as the game that started the whole thing.